I'm up in Glasgow, Scotland to take a flight that I've wanted to do for a very long time, and I'm sure a lot of other aviation enthusiasts would agree with me. This is a trip that I, along with a ton of other AvGeeks I'm sure, have done in Flight Simulator countless times, and I'm so happy that I'm able to finally do this flight in real life. I am talking about Barra, the only commercial airport in the world where aircraft operate directly on the beach. Obviously, Flight Sim is not even close to being accurate, as a lot of the scenery is incorrect, and of course the Loganair TwinOtter hasn't worn the British Airways paint job since about 2006. And this is the point where I'm going to stop talking about Flight Sim and talk about the actual flight, as it's much more exciting than the simulator. Online check-in for Loganair begins about 96 hours prior to the departure time, and I was able to get a mobile boarding pass, but I of course wanted to get a paper boarding pass for this awesome flight, with in-person check-in opening 2 hours before the flight leaves and closing 40 minutes before departure time. When you're leaving directly from Glasgow, make sure to give yourself enough time to get through security, as you go through the same security area that every other flight does, and the lines can sometimes get long. The Loganair flights operated by the TwinOtter are normally on the north side of the airport, closer to where Jet2 and EasyJet operate out of. And my flight would be departing from gate number 5, which means I get to go down this stairwell. My aircraft for this flight up to Barra will be GSGTS, a de Havilland TwinOtter that was originally delivered to Loganair back in 2015, and actually was one of the display models at the Paris Air Show in 2015 as well. Loganair does have assigned seating even for their TwinOtter flights, and I had 4A, a window on the left side of the aircraft.
Yeah, good luck.
Just going to squeeze past you there. Thank you, everyone. Ready for Barra? Yes. Weather there then, a bit cloudy, about 1,600 feet. It's quite windy, but you should get a bit of a view coming in. Anyone not flown on this before? Cool.
Yeah, we have.
You have it as well. Cool. Right. So TwinOtter aircraft, you've got safety leaflet in the front here, but there's 2 exits in the windows here. There's 2 exits at the back there. If we do need to get off in a hurry, my first officer will come back and she'll point out which way we're going to go. Leave your hand baggage behind though, please. Life jackets there underneath your seat.
I'll talk more about other fun facts and information about this route and the plane once we're in the air, and I'll try and make the voice audio as loud as I possibly can with the propeller noise, so I do apologize if it gets a little loud, as I'm trying to make the voice audio loud enough to hear over the propeller noise. than the aircraft. Let's go over some of the features of this aircraft. The Loganair TwinOtters do have 19 passenger seats, but for these flights out to Barra, they do weight restrict these planes to only 15 passengers because they have to tanker fuel out and back. I am 5'4" for reference, and there's an okay amount of legroom between me and the seat in front of me, but chances are you won't be on these aircraft for very long anyways. Normally you'd also have your personal item underneath the seat in front of you, but because it was a light enough flight, I was able to put my backpack underneath the seats next to me. On the top of the seat back there is a smaller pocket for small items such as phones and passports, and in the seat back pocket there is a safety card as well as a sick bag, which luckily nobody needed to use on this flight. And on the walls right near where the seat number is, there is a light as well as an air vent. And honestly, that is pretty much it as far as stuff inside the cabin. It's a smaller aircraft, so obviously there's no Wi-Fi or in-flight entertainment, but you really don't need it on the smaller flights that this aircraft takes, and watching the scenery go by beneath you is usually enough entertainment for the entire flight. Since there's no Wi-Fi or IFE, that obviously means there's also no in-flight moving map, but if you are in the forward half of the cabin, you can usually see the GPS in the cockpit from where you're seated. Barra is a super unique airport and is the only beach runway in the world for commercial flights. All of the flights that operate in and out of this airport have to happen in a 4-hour time span when the tide is low enough so that the planes can land on the sand. Similar to how the US has EAS Essential Air Service flights, the flights into Barra are classified as PSO, which essentially stands for Public Service Obligation and are all funded by the government. This is due to the fact that this airport and this flight is an essential need for the people of Barra to get on and off the island to hospitals and other appointments in Glasgow. They do have a ferry that operates from Barra, but it does not operate in the rough weather, so these flights are definitely a lifeline, especially when those ferries do cancel. Every day and before the flights operate, they go out and inspect the sand to make sure the tide didn't leave anything behind that may puncture the tires of the aircraft. Obviously, they can't really mark the sand as it would wash away with each tide, so they do have poles on the end of each of the 3 runways that mark where they begin and end. If you go back and look at the history of the flights, you'll see that a lot of the days aren't the same in terms of flight schedule. This is because the flights are dependent on the tides like I had mentioned before, and because the tides constantly change due to the weather and time of year, no 2 days will be alike in terms of flight schedule timing. This constant changing in the weather is also why they tanker fuel out and back. In the event they aren't able to land in Barra, they have enough fuel to get all the way back to Glasgow.
We've got a bit of weather around, so I can't promise
awesome landing here on the sand, it's time to get out and explore just for a little bit before getting back on the same plane back to Glasgow. They did have a terminal expansion here in Barra which opened sometime in 2023, and before that it was just the grey building. When you arrive, you're led into this small room which also doubles as the departure gate and baggage claim as well. And right next to that is the Loganair ticket counter. One thing you'll notice is that there is no security checkpoint, which means when arriving in Glasgow we are treated as a non-sterile flight. On the side of the terminal facing the beach, there are big windows, which is wonderful to see the aircraft, and you can also see the poles that mark the end of the runways out in the distance. I was able to find an airport diagram for Barra, so I'm going to put that on the screen, and it's really cool seeing it, especially because they do label where the poles are on the chart. Even though I was only able to stay at this airport for a short amount of time, I had to go outside real quick and get a picture with the sign for the airport. Once you're back inside, on the opposite side of the terminal there is a departure screen which is located in the cafe. Unfortunately, I had to start making my way back to North America, meaning I booked a return flight on the same aircraft I came in on. I wish I could have stayed longer to explore the airport as well as the town nearby, but I feel like this was the right choice given the weather the day I took this trip. For the flight back down to Glasgow, it was a completely full flight of 15, and like I mentioned before, 15 is what they weight cap these aircraft to given they tanker fuel in and out. For the flight back down to Glasgow, I will be in 2C, but the crew saw my camera and recognized me from the outbound flight, so they offered I move up to 1C in the front row. Glasgow, I wasn't able to see anything for pretty much the entire flight because of the clouds and the weather, and the onboard experience was pretty much the same being in the front row of the aircraft, with the only difference being now I have a much clearer view of the cockpit, and I was even able to get a picture of the aeronautical chart for Barra. Forgot to mention is the windsock at the airport. Since the beach the planes land on is technically public, when the airport is not active and the windsock is down, people are welcome to walk on the beach as they wish, but once that windsock goes up, the airport goes active, and you need to stay clear of the beach and keep off of it as it is a landing zone. Given the experience was pretty much the same and the views were almost non-existent, I'm going to skip to the approach into Glasgow. That was an absolutely amazing experience flying into Barra on the beach runway, and as an AvGeek I've wanted to do that for a very long time and I'm so glad I was able to do so. My only regret is not being able to stay a little bit longer so I could get some pictures of the aircraft taking off and landing there, as well as not being able to explore the town nearby the airport, but I definitely plan on going back to do both of those. As an aviation enthusiast, this flight to Barra should definitely be at the top of your bucket list, as even as a passenger you can tell the difference between landing on sand and landing on pavement. This is not the only Loganair flight that is well known, with their other well-known route being the shortest one in the world between Westray and Papa Westray. From here I take Aer Lingus to Dublin on an ATR, but that will be in a different video.